Hi, this is Stephen with Fares Management Interactive, and today we're going to look at the automatic creation of groups of booths that we call pods. This also automatically numbers them and can arrange them in certain orders and sequences. As we begin our lesson, it's important to remember that every layout in Fares MI is created with pods, whether it be with 2 booths or with 100. And so we, in this way, create groupings of table setups and booth layouts and parking spaces using the pod tools. So let's jump right in by using a background map to start our layout. We're choosing this exhibit hall. And then we go to our booth layout tools. And in the upper section on the left is our booth pod control. We're going to make a minimum booth, which demonstrates that every layout is created with pods. So we're going to create with 1 aisle and 1 booth in a row. And there you see. And as you can see that every booth pod has this handle that is able to grab and drag. Now we're going to go ahead and make some multiple booths. We're going to increase the number of booths in a row and the number of aisles. You can see that our automatic numbering is being generated also. Now we can also make horizontal layouts as well as vertical layouts of booths, and we choose that icon to create that. And we also have a choice in our starting numbers, so that when we go from one exhibit hall to the next or one section within an exhibit hall, we can start a whole new numbering system if we choose. So you can see we went ahead and changed our starting number. We also can choose to number from right to left instead of left to right, which is very useful when you have an entrance that's on one end of the hall that would begin your numbering sequences differently. In terms of editing pods, we can delete an entire pod by clicking on its handle to activate it. We can also delete just a few individual booths by going to our single booth control and clicking on that booth and deleting those. So now let's start with a blank layout and create an entire layout of booths for a exhibit hall. We've put the number of booths and rows at 8. We're going to go ahead and change our booth size to have 8-foot deep booths. Let's go ahead and leave our aisles at 7. And we're going to change the width of our aisles. We're going to change it 9. And we're going to make our layout from left to right. Now we hit New. We grab our little pod handle and put it in place. We've got an entrance on the right that we need to clear out with our single booth move. And now we have a layout. And as you can see, we can adjust the various widths and sizes to maximize the booth layouts. So let's move on to making a banquet table setup with 8-foot rounds in this hall. We start out by creating a custom table size, and this is done with our advanced control and our list of icons, which can vary from geometric symbols to safety and other types of symbols, and we have a whole list of icons here to choose from. But right now we just want to choose a round table with a number. We hit OK. That's now our active quote-unquote booth to use for our pod layout. We're now going to change the booth size to 8-foot by 8-foot, which creates a perfectly round 8-foot table. We're going to change the number of booths in a row to 8 and the number of aisles to 5. We're going to leave the width of aisles the same because we're going to use an advanced pod control here to create a layout. Now we want the staggered type of banquet layout, which is the X pattern, and we want to create a certain separation between the booths. Now this separation is actually relative to the size of the icon we're creating. So you have to do a little bit of experimentation depending on the size of your table or your various setups. We hit new just like before, and we can see that we've made it a little bit too much separation. So it's very easy to edit these. It just takes a few seconds of trial and error to get your banquet tables exactly right. So we delete that pod. We go back into our advanced control and we choose a tighter separation. You can see we lower the number to 3. We hit OK, which sets our settings there. And now we hit new again. We drag it into place. And like with the other pod controls, we can remove tabletops in certain areas in front of entrances or create a move tables over with our single booth control. And now there's your banquet layout. Now this can be done with smaller layouts for cafes or bar setups that can be created and saved and dropped into various layouts and events over and over again. Now there's an interesting technique using pods or multiple booth layouts that applies to parking areas outside where we have an open field of unmarked area that we want to divide up and calculate the maximum parking spaces. What's interesting is that we can, by adjusting the size of the parking spaces and the aisles in between, can maximize the parking spaces with very little adjustment of dimension as it is multiplied over a large number of spaces. So let's go in and look at an outdoor area. We're going to go ahead and choose from our map. And now we're going to go ahead and make our quote-unquote booth adjustments, which are now our parking spaces. We adjust the number of booths in a row, and we adjust our booth size as to what is specified as a parking dimension. We create the aisles in between, and we go ahead and define what we specify as the width of aisles between those spaces. We go ahead and create a numbering system and our layout orientation, and we hit new. Now since we have an area that is broken up by trees, we're going to create multiple pods, and there's going to be a trick to this where we identify the last number in the parking space to create the first number in our next pod section. So our pod has been created, and we drag it into place, and then we go ahead and we click on the last booth in the pod, and you can see that it identifies it in the single booth control, the booth number. We're now going to go ahead in our starting booth number for the next pod. We're going to set it at that number, and you'll see why we do this. So now we're going to create our second pod, or parking spaces. We've increased the number of booths in a row to 11, and we've increased our number of aisles. Now, this can easily be done by trial and error to make sure that we have the right numbers. As you see, I've put that number 311 in the first pod over the second pod. And as you can see, those 311 numbers are now overlapping, and we delete one of them and have created a continuous parking area. Now any of these parking spaces can be deleted to create cross aisles or to make way for trees or other obstructions. We can go back and create multiple versions where we try out just taking out a few inches out of the parking aisles and the parking spaces to maximize or to fit in conveniently to the area that we want to create for parking. So this is our overview lesson on pods or automatic multiple booth generation. Please call or write me anytime, and I will create a custom video for you or answer any questions you might have on the Fares Management Interactive Tools. Thank you.